The air in the warehouse is thick, hot, heavy, and full of the smell of money and metal. Fluorescent bulbs flicker above, painting everything in tired white light. Stacks of bills reach up like city blocks, bundled, taped, and marked with codes only a few people understand. Mark is king. Turner stands in the middle of it all, wearing a suit that looks like it's just been through a war. He breathes fast. His chest moves quick. He looks at the money and remembers every small step that brought him here, every late night on the corner, every risky deal, every hand he had to shake to get this far. Tonight, though, the air tastes different. There's a warning in the sound of approaching sirens, in the way men move quicker, in the way eyes flick toward the office door. Move the trucks now. Marcus shouts, and the words slice through the warehouse like a knife. Men scramble. Pallets roll on creaking forklifts. Somewhere far away, or maybe very near, helicopters make a low, hungry sound. Marcus's phone buzzes against his chest. One message blinks on the screen. 2 small words. They know. His world tilts. For a heartbeat, he pictures a whole empire he built and sees it unraveling into dust. He was a kid from the projects who taught himself to move money like a magician. He was king. But kings can fall quickly. The sound of boots hits concrete, and Marcus feels the cold slap of panic. He breathes in hard, tastes smoke and metal, and pushes forward. There's one living rule he knows by heart. You don't stop moving when danger comes. You run faster. You outthink the trap. That night in the warehouse, the rule gets tested. Sirens climb nearer. Men shout. An explosion rattles the far wall. The empire begins to collapse, but Marcus does not yet accept defeat. He wants to survive. He will make choices now that will shape every day after this night. Marcus didn't wake up one morning as king. He was a skinny kid on the west side, with a mother working 2 jobs and a house that felt too small for dreams. School was a struggle. He couldn't afford to lose time on. He learned early that survival needed smarter moves than fists. He started with small trades, sneakers, fake watches, cheap electronics, sold out a cousin's trunk. Those small trades taught him a bigger rule. Cash moves fastest when you decide where it goes. By the time he was a teenager, Marcus had a crew. They called themselves the Black Line Crew. Street corners were their markets. He watched people, listened to language, learned who trusted money and who feared it. He rose slowly, quietly. When leadership changed hands, Marcus stepped into gaps others left. He used burner phones, coded words, fake receipts, and small shell companies. He learned to hide money in plain sight through honest-looking businesses, car dealerships, and deals that made him look like just another businessman. He didn't touch the harmful crimes directly. He built the plumbing that let dirty money flow clean. Little by little, his reputation grew. People began to call him king, sarcastically at first, then as respect. He wanted more than money. He wanted safety, power, a system no one could break. Every smart decision, every small lie turned into something bigger. From the projects to mansions, Marcus kept an eye on the long game. That childhood hunger hardened into a careful ambition. Build a machine so clever it could not be caught. But ambition draws attention. For every step up, someone watches from below. For Marcus, the climb was only the beginning, and the fall could be fast. Marcus's approach was simple and cruelly effective. Keep your hands clean. Let others do the dirt. He learned that money is a language and banks are just long-term memory. If you speak carefully, they forget. He set up fake companies that sold nothing, bought art no one could hold, and opened accounts that meant nothing to anyone until they held everything. He used car dealership front companies, bought houses in the names of quiet people, and smuggled cash through legal-looking wire transfers. He learned to layer transactions, so the trail split into a fog no one could follow. He worked with tech, too, early crypto tumblers, overseas servers, and layers of shell corporations that hid cash behind legal paper walls. He treated finance like a puzzle and loved how easily a few clever steps could change money's shape. He offered banks comfortable lies and auditors neat numbers. People wanted to believe. He gave them reasons. When money moved, so did influence. He hired accountants who didn't ask questions and lawyers who read complexity as profit. He made donations to charities that put his name in warm lights, while the real cash flowed quietly elsewhere. It felt like art, a design both invisible and powerful. But every system has weak points. Humans talk. Computers log. Small mistakes become loud clues. Marcus trusted the system until the system started to trust him back. And that was when he grew careless. The bigger his reach, the louder the risk. Still, he pushed forward. He would not be small again. He would build an empire that changed how money moved around the world. The meeting with Mr. Hale happened in a hotel that smelled faintly of cigars and polished wood. Hale was quiet, polite, and very dangerous. He didn't brag. He explained complicated methods the way a teacher explains fractions, calm, precise, and without mercy. He told Marcus about offshore accounts and shell corporations tucked in places that kept no questions, about using art and real estate as clean covers, about crypto methods that blurred the lines until they disappeared. Marcus listened. He watched a man who could turn street money into bank statements that looked like honest profit. Then there was Daniel Cruz. Daniel was slick, Miami suits, the right accent, and a math mind that loved risk. He taught Marcus the next level. Real offshore strategy, accounts that sat quietly in places far from prying eyes, corporate names that could vanish the minute someone peered too close. Marcus liked Daniel because he spoke the language of numbers like poetry. With Daniel's help, Marcus's operation scaled fast. He still kept his distance from the dirty work, but now the scale changed. Where once he handled small drops, now entire companies moved money through layers so deep the original crime was a ghost. Behind the glitter and spreadsheets, there were deals that smelled dangerous. Partners who wanted too much, accountants who skimmed, and men who forgot loyalty. Marcus learned to smile and write checks that kept enemies quiet. He thought he had found the perfect teacher and partner. But even perfect plans fold when human greed gets involved. Daniel's wit and Hale's calm wisdom opened doors Marcus never thought possible. Yet every open door leads to more people in the circle, and more chances for betrayal. Marcus's masterpiece was called The Cascade. It would be the biggest move he'd ever pulled. Nearly $1 billion washed through dozens of fake corporations in 48 hours. It would layer and scramble funds, so well that every trail would split into 100 false leads. Banks would see numbers change and nod with approval. Regulators would chase ghosts. To Marcus, it was a crowning moment, clever, bold, and almost artful. He pictured the transfers like water over stones, rushing and changing shape until no one could tell which was the beginning and which the end. He called his trusted people. Every node had instructions. Pallets that moved cash would be rerouted. Shell companies would issue invoices. And offshore accounts would receive small, plausible wires that would be combined later into something clean. Marcus paced like a conductor. He felt a dangerous rush. This was the moment that could make him untouchable. But every masterpiece needs a protected secret. He thought he had covered every vulnerability. Coded language, multiple burner phones, redundant exit plans. Still, somewhere in the margins of his machine, a small mistake waited like a loose screw. His network's weakest link would not be machines or papers. It would be a person. When the cascade began, the world watched numbers move on invisible rails. Marcus breathed and watched the plan, like a father watches his child learn to run. The thrill was intoxicating. But even as transfers moved and papers printed, the first alarms began to hum quietly in far-off places. Small mistakes, a wire to the wrong account, a reused alias, whispered like tiny sirens. In the end, the cascade would prove that even a perfect plan can fail if trust is misplaced. Marcus felt the risk, but he had a plan to outrun danger. Move fast, vanish cleaner, and rebuild elsewhere. Rico was the kind of friend who once shared everything, including the street corner where Marcus first learned to trade. He stood beside Marcus as muscle, as lookout, and later as a trusted lieutenant who knew the layout of the warehouses and the names of the drivers. They had been brothers in the only language they'd ever owned. But power changes things. Rico began to speak differently. He wanted the old life, the respect of the streets, not the careful numbers and offshore accounts Marcus now prized. He missed the raw rush of running a corner, missed the immediate respect. Marcus grew quiet and cold in response. choosing spreadsheets and offshore calls over quick nights on the block. One night, under yellow light, Rico said the thing that would change everything. "King, you're losing the streets." He meant it as a warning. Marcus heard it as betrayal. For Rico, money wasn't enough. He wanted recognition where he once found it. Marcus told him to choose. Be part of the new game or step away. Rico didn't step away. He watched as Marcus traded old friends for clean suits. Tension built. Moves happened in silence. Phone calls that ended with click, longer waits from trusted men, a quiet absence in places where presence used to mean loyalty. Betrayal rarely arrives as an explosion. It's slow, a leak that widens until the dam breaks. Rico's frustration turned into whispers. Those whispers found ears they should not have touched. Marcus felt the shift in glances and the strange quiet in the locker room. He tried to patch things with promises and force. But once the root of doubt grows, decisions come that are not easily reversed. In the end, the question was never just about money. It was about identity. For Rico, loyalty meant the streets. For Marcus, loyalty meant the empire. That divide would mark the line between survival and ruin. Agent Sarah Whitman started with what most people call small clues: a suspicious real estate purchase, an inactive account with sudden wire, a charity donation that didn't add up. She had a patient mind and a stubborn heart. Where others saw numbers, she saw a pattern. She spent nights tracing funds across time zones, connecting shell companies to real owners, and linking quiet bank accounts to front businesses that sold nothing. She built a board with red strings that connected names no one would expect. A massage parlor in Miami, a car dealership in Atlanta, a fake foundation that loved public praise. Whitman's team moved carefully. They didn't rush loud arrests. They watched, built cases, and waited for the moment when a small mistake would reveal the whole picture. When an inactive bank employee reported an odd transfer, she smelled the first crack. It was a breadcrumb that showed sloppy human error. The best way to find a giant machine was to find the small, stubborn screw someone forgot to tighten. She followed the breadcrumbs, and each step made the net tighter. That slow, methodical work created a map Marcus hadn't seen. He was a master of money, but Whitman was a master of patience. She traced transfers to shell companies, traced shell papers to offshore accounts, and slowly connected Marcus to a pattern that spelled out $1 billion laundry. Her voice was steady when she told her team, "He's getting bolder. He thinks he's untouchable." But she had the time and the law. When the map finally pointed to a warehouse, the net moved. It was not the sudden fireworks he expected, but the quiet closing of evidence around him. For Whitman, this was always about the slow work, the small steps that make big cases fall. No empire is invincible when a human slips. Marcus had built systems, but one small error, a misplaced wire to an inactive account, set the whole machine wobbling. It seemed tiny. $50,000 sent to an account that had been closed years ago and later reported by a worried bank clerk. To Marcus, it was a footnote. To the FBI, it was a thread leading to everything. Investigators like Whitman live for that kind of mistake. Once you find one, others follow. The wire opened a door. Agents pulled records, subpoenaed emails, and found patterns of behavior that had hidden for years behind false paperwork. The Cascade's first transfers moved, but the trail had already begun to glow faintly in the right hands. Marcus felt something like a shiver. He checked accounts, spoke in code over phones, and watched people who used to be loyal become quiet. The mistake multiplied into suspicion. Men who handled small pieces of the plan began to panic. And panic is the worst enemy of perfect schemes. When news of the wrong transfer reached outside ears, a chain of events accelerated. Audits, inquiries, and finally, a decision from agents who had patience and power. Marcus tried to keep calm, but the loose thread pulled at the weave of his empire. He made plans to move, to hide, to erase. But the FBI had enough to move on the warehouse and enough proof to break the locks. The tiny error, $50,000, would be the pebble that rolled the mountain. Marcus sat in a dark room, his laptop lighting his face in cold blue. The bank pages flashed red, account frozen. The screen kept repeating it like a chorus. His jaw tightened. The reflection in his glasses showed alarm messages, blocked transfers, and freeze notifications. Money that had been liquid 1 minute now sat behind legal walls. The system he trusted had its own rules. When investigators push, banks do what they must, and tonight the world changed into red. In the glow of that screen, Marcus tasted panic and anger in equal measure. Accounts frozen meant plans stalled. Flight routes blocked. The cascade, built on smooth transactions, slowed as if hammered by sudden ice. He felt the weight of the stalls. Drivers pulled back. Offshore partners went quiet. The quiet was worse than noise. He saw the map of his life flash by. His rise, the partners who smiled, and every trust he'd given. Every slash on the account page was a betrayal of his careful plan. He tapped keys, called lawyers, and made deals he hadn't wanted to make. He tried to move money the old ways, but those days took longer and had more danger. The freeze bought investigators time and robbed Marcus of momentum he needed to vanish cleanly. He cursed in short, sharp breaths and planned the next move, an exit route that would not depend on frozen banks. In a world of legal freezes and subpoenas, he would learn that control is temporary. The cold light on the laptop faces him with a simple truth. Even the cleverest man can be stopped by a law-stamped block. The game changed, and Marcus now had to run faster than ever. Night cloaked the mansion in velvet darkness. Powerful lights cut through smoke as tactical teams moved like shadows with purpose. Doors opened with a violent, final sound. Luxury cars glinted under floodlights, and the sophisticated quiet of Marcus's life shattered into order chaos. Agents moved with training and precision. Clear the rooms, secure the perimeter, and find evidence. The house that once held safe dinners and plans now became a crime scene. Inside, Marcus's staff scrambled. Men who once protected him found themselves answering to commands. The roar of action filled marble halls and echoed off expensive art. Marcus's name became a code on radios, the priority target. Agents methodically swept rooms, cameras, and safes. They found records, screens, and piles of documents that whispered his empire's secrets. For Marcus, it was the sound of his life being cataloged. He had seen quick raids before, but nothing like this. A calm, efficient flood that uncovered what a show of wealth had tried to hide. As the raid progressed, his private world collapsed into evidence boxes and fingerprints. Men who once whispered in his ear were cuffed and read their rights. For the first time, the comfortable illusion of untouchability broke under the authority of law. The mansion's lights, once a sign of achievement, now exposed the cracks in his kingdom. He watched men take files and photograph rooms, the kind of recorded proof that takes long sentences and quiet offices to digest. The raid was not just force, it was collection. It cataloged the life he had built, leaving little left for reconstruction.